So right, UFC Fight Night, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. What's the undercard? This main event's fucking terrible. Hold on. Just 1 second, guys. I gotta check this main card. I gotta just check this whole entire card because this main event's fucking awful. Hold on. Oh no. So right, UFC Fight Night, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev takes place in the main event this weekend. And I'm going to be going through the entire main card, starting with the opener, ending with the main event, giving you guys my full breakdown and prediction. And, oh man, you know what? You know what this feels like? This entire card, it feels like a 2020 pandemic fight night card. It's just so awful, but gonna just tackle the main card. If you guys wonder who I got for the prelims, boom, this is who I got. And no further ado, let's just get this shit over with. Let's just do it. Let's break down this awful fight night card.
Dear Dana White and matchmakers, I hate this. Nobody wants this. Love, RNC.
We move on to the opener of the main card, Umar Nurmagomedov versus Bekzat Almakhaan. One of my locks here, I'm going to be going with Umar Nurmagomedov to get the win here. Now, this fight really comes down to two things, in my opinion. Ever since this fight's gotten announced, I've thought of two things. One, either the UFC is feeding an absolute can to feed up Umar's record and resume, or this Bekzat guy must be real elite if he's taken on Umar Nurmagomedov in his UFC debut. And since then, it's just been changing. I mean, his record's 17-1, and just by looking at his past fights in the regional scene, he shows that he's very capable on the feet and on the ground. You know, if this fight plays out how I think it is, this could be a very, very tricky fight for Umar. I kind of see this fight for Umar being a Arman Saryukian versus, Matush Gamrot type of fight for Umar. I think he's going to win the fight, but I think it's going to be a lot difficult than he thinks because this Bekzat guy is pretty capable on the feet and on the ground. It's pretty much a mirror match, but here's the thing. Umar Nurmagomedov is part of that Dagestan lineage. I mean, he's Khabib's cousin, for crying out loud. He trains at a real good gym at AKA Young, undefeated, trains with Islam Makhachev, Usman Nurmagomedov. I mean, I could keep on going. The accolades. I'm not going to pick against these guys, I just see Umar Nurmagomedov just levels above compared to these other bantamweights, but we just haven't seen it yet. So, enough of all that. Umar Nurmagomedov gets it done via second round submission after a pretty entertaining first round, and he is just one part of Father's plan. We move on to the next fight on the main card. Matt Schenll versus Steve Erceg. Really easy pick here. I am going to be going with Ross from Friends to get it done in the first round. Matt Schenll is a chinny fuck who can't seem to take a punch well to save his life, and is just overall a stylistic nightmare in this matchup. I mean, Schenll is a small, scrappy fighter who leaves himself wide open. I mean, his nickname is Danger, and he lives on to it. He is a 50-50 fighter who lives by the sword, dies by it. So I just think this is a bad stylistic matchup. He's a small, scrappy fighter who leaves himself wide open whenever he exchanges in the pocket, and against a guy like Erceg, who is a technical striker with some decent power, is just a recipe of disaster for Schenll. 2-0 in the UFC for Erceg. He's been looking good since his UFC debut, and I do think he has a suspect chin himself. Schenll ain't going to be the guy to finish him. Erceg gets it done 3-0 in the UFC and gets it done via first round finish, KO. We move on to the feature fight of the main card, Muhammad Mokaev versus Alex Perez. Pretty interesting fight here. Now, leading up to this fight week, I see a lot of people writing off Alex Perez's chances of winning this fight, and at one point in time, this would have been an actual winnable fight for him, and in a different setting, in a different set of circumstances per se, I would have picked Alex Perez to beat Muhammad Mokaev, but picking him now, I just got to be brutally honest here. Alex Perez is not that same dude anymore, and it's a shame because when he was in his prime, when he was actually running through the flyweight division at one point, there was actually in talks of him becoming a champion and fighting for a title, but he's been submitted 5 times in his career. He's coming off 2 submission losses back to back, one of them being a guillotine choke from Deiveson Figueiredo, and recently on his last fight out, coming off a standing rear naked choke to the current champion Alexander Pantoja, which aren't bad losses. Those are 2 champions you've lost to and nothing to really hang your head over, but against a strong guy or against a strong grappler like Muhammad Mokaev, I think this is just a stylistic good matchup for him. And yeah, man, inactivity as well. That's another thing that another reason why I'm picking against Alex Perez. From 2020 to now, so in the span of 4 years, he's had about 11 canceled bouts. So this dude hasn't fought in over 2 years, has gotten over 11 canceled bouts, and he is facing off against an active young killer in Muhammad Mokaev. That's another thing. Muhammad Mokaev is 23, facing off a 31-year-old Alexander Perez. I'm going to be going with Muhammad Mokaev. I do think he's going to lose the first round because there's a trend in Muhammad Mokaev fights where he loses. He looks bad in the early on, but as soon as the fight goes on, he wins, or he pressures and dominates. Then he finds a submission, and I think that's going to happen here. I think he's going to lose the first round. I think Alex Perez is going to look good early on, but as soon as the fight goes on, I think Muhammad Mokaev is going to just maintain his dominance over Perez on the ground and secure himself a submission in the 3rd round. We move on to the co-main event, Vitor Petrino versus Tyson Pedro. I personally think this fight is going to be a fun scrap, both guys being very dangerous strikers on the feet, carrying devastating knockout power. It is a very tough call here, but I see a lot of people actually picking Vitor Petrino to get it done, but all throughout fight week, I've actually been leaning towards the underdog side of Tyson Pedro getting the win here. Look, both guys are pretty open on the feet, but I trust in the crisp, accurate shot selection of Tyson Pedro to land on the chin of Vitor Petrino. It's a bit risky because Tyson Pedro is a inconsistent fighter. He's pretty 50-50, but whenever he switches on and locks in, he's pretty damn good. But man, it's a tough fight here. Very, very tough fight. Vitor Petrino is a savage, and I'm not doubting his chances whatsoever because he can finish Tyson Pedro. This fight comes down to who's going to finish who, but if I had to really pick, if I had to really think, I trust in the experience and fight IQ of Tyson Pedro getting the win and getting a finish over Vitor Petrino, getting it done via KO in the later rounds. We move on to the main event, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. Pretty interesting stat here. It shows that by Saturday night, this will be Rozenstruik's 6th time headlining a UFC Fight Night card, which I thought was interesting, but getting sidetracked here. Look, despite this card being absolute shit, at least the fights were pretty easy to predict here, and in this main event, it's a bit risky, a bit 50-50, but I am going to be going with Shamil Gaziev to get it done. Yes, Rozenstruik has fought way better competition than Gaziev. Gaziev is coming off a debut win over Martin Buday, which isn't a bad win at all. Martin Buday was on a 4-fight win streak before losing to Shamil Gaziev, but Rozenstruik has fought way better levels of competition. But here's the thing. I just personally see this fight being a stylistic nightmare for Rozenstruik. We've seen in the past that Rozenstruik's biggest nightmare is wrestling at all. I mean, when you watch his fights and watch his training, you got to question yourself, does he really train grappling offense or defense? I mean, recent loss coming off a first round submission over Jailton Almeida, and way before that, coming off a unanimous decision loss to Curtis Blade, and he got out-wrestled 15 minutes that whole entire fight. So, Yes, he's fought way better competition than Shamil. I think it's a bit sus that the UFC is pushing this guy really hard. I mean, his UFC debut was 2 months ago. Now he's coming back, and now he's main eventing against a tricky but pretty one-trick pony veteran in, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He isn't bad, but again, I just see this fight being a purely stylistic nightmare for him. I see this fight going in Shamil Gaziev's favor. I think he's going to outbully. I think he's going to muscle him against the clinch and find a submission. I don't think he's going to submit him in the first round. I think he's going to bully him, muscle him around, tire him out, and maybe find the submission in the second round after just tiring him out in the first. So Gaziev is the pick. Shamil Gaziev is the pick and gets it done via second round submission. All in all, did pretty well on last week's card, despite getting the co-main and main event wrong and Tercios versus Rosas being canceled. I went a total record of 9-3. Thank you guys for watching today's video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on my socials, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.